Hey, this is George Pianka demoing my Flatiron School portfolio project for the Rails section. So for this project, I wanted to make a complement to my last Sinatra project, which was called FitSesh, which allowed you to share, track, log workouts, and then kind of sort by recommendations, favorite exercises, and FitDish, this Rails application, is kind of a complement to that. So this is a FitDish's Rails application for storing, sharing, and rating recipes. You can generate grocery lists from recipes that you've added to your dishes. It's kind of like a menu for the week. That grocery list is generated from the ingredients that you've from the recipes that you've added. And there's also features like liking other people's recipes or your own, and recommending healthy ingredient substitutions, which is kind of cool. So from here, we're actually just going to run Puma, kind of a standard Rails server. The application does have OmniAuth login through Facebook, and that was some of the project requirements. We're actually going to navigate to listen in here, but we're going to specifically go to localhost. And we actually have to, reminds me, we have to actually launch using Postgres. It's aliased here, so that's pretty easy. There we go. Now we should be able to connect to that database. All right. There we go. Here's the application. I'll log out here and demonstrate the OmniAuth login is available right off of the index page. So the OmniAuth login, you can actually set that up. Obviously, the environment details were not stored in the GitHub repository, but you can actually, as per the README, you can utilize that OmniAuth when running a local deployment server in development mode by navigating to localhost specifically. Localhost 3000, they allow redirects from localhost, so it will work from there. If you wanted to use like SSL HTTPS, you could sort of create a self-signed certificate and run through thin start SSL. So we have the gem thin in the application as well. We're just going to keep it simple here. So you would log in with Facebook, you would access it this way, and then go through mine here. There you go. And it's going to redirect, kind of goes through the handshake process, and it's going to pull some information from that hash. We haven't added any dishes yet, you can see here. And there's a menu bar at the top, which allows you to go to an ingredients index. You can see all the ingredients that people have added. There's recipes indexes as well, where you have a list of the recipes that others have added as well as yourself. And if you go, you can search by name of recipe. So tuna, there are my results. Okay. I want to search by an ingredient. Let's see what has chocolate. And that'll actually search by the ingredient and find recipes that have that ingredient. This gives you the entire index in alphabetical order. You have the option of listing by the most popular, and that's going to be utilizing Rails 5 left joins, because here you also have the rest of the non-rated recipes returned as well. So that was kind of fun to play around with Rails 5. Here we have the most recently added, and then your recipes, but of course we haven't added any. Now we can log out from here, log in with one of the users that has generated recipes. We actually have in the seeds, there's all the recipes are generated, so you can actually run that as per the README by cloning bundle install, and then do Rails DB setup to kind of get Postgres setup, and then Rails DB schema load, or migrate in Rails DB seed. So for your usual validations through here, so for example, if we try to log in with an email that we have but incorrect password, login error, try again, don't have an account, sign up, there we are. And it's fun to play around with Bootstrap 4. Got a good chance of doing that, but if you're trying to sign up, for example, let's create a username. Let's try to do some random. If we just do something that doesn't make sense as an email, it's going to alert us password can't be blank, email is invalid. And it's kind of fun to play around with this. So we have kind of a notice bar. We have an error message to display, and then we have a field for errors, which actually went in and made that a span, so I could actually get all of these bordered up without messing up the format. Here, if we leave all of this blank, you can see all these fields are highlighted. Password can't be blank, username can't be blank. Anyway, let's log in to an existing user who has generated recipes. So here's generally the user page. You can see a grocery list that's been generated from the recipes that have been added to our dishes. Additionally, there's recommended ingredient substitutions, and this is a feature that allows users to recommend an ingredient substitution, a healthy alternative, from either a selection of the ingredients that have been added to the ingredients index, either directly through adding a new ingredient or through the recipes. You can see here, these are generated. Now this allows me to delete it because I was the one creating it, or adding the substitution. Now let's go to the recipes index. You can see here when I go to your recipes, we can actually see the recipes that were added by me. There we go. Search by name. Check out s'mores. S'mores. Okay. Show recipe. Here we are. Description. Ingredients. Ingredient substitutions. Why not, right? There you go. Now from this bar, it depends who's logged in, right? Every user has the ability to add to dishes, like or unlike the recipe, but edit, delete, that's only available to the user who owns that recipe, so to speak. Under the entire recipes index, let's go to recent, let's go down to this one here. So this recipe, you can see this was not generated by the current logged in user, therefore the ability to delete or edit that recipe is not available. Here we can like and unlike the recipe, and this is actually done through like jQuery, actually some JS templates here as well for this feature, just to kind of experiment. But there you go, like and unlike, and we're not going through a whole request response cycle. And that's two different divs that are being sort of tagged for replacement through the jQuery. So if we add a dish to our dish list here, we kind of have these dishes for the week, dish menu, if you will. Now these have been added by me, so I can delete them if I want to delete one of these from the list. It's going to ask me, am I sure? Okay, gone. There we go, dish removed. We get that nice notice. There we go. You can see that this is all being adjusted based on that. So for example, if I delete one of these, if I go back to the recipes index, I add hummus, I'm going to add it to my dishes. Okay, there are my dishes, and now we can see it's generated the grocery list for hummus. If I go to my user page, or just the main page, user profile, there you go, grocery list. And again, no one has recommended substitutions yet, but here they have. They're recommended stripping out, for example, Nutella and replacing the chocolate that was in the s'mores recipe. So the thing that was most difficult about this project was probably when we create new recipes. So if we create a new recipe name here, first let's just kind of run through. It's basically accepting, the idea here is that you have recipes that belong to a user, and then they can belong in a different way to users through a has many association, has many through association, as dishes. Now, recipes accept attributes for recipe ingredients. And the recipe ingredients, in essence, are able to assign the attributes for an ingredient to which they belong. An ingredient recipe belongs to a recipe, and that recipe has the name, while the ingredient recipe ingredient has the quantity. So you can see here, this is actually being generated. It's very deeply nested. This was very complicated, especially to even get any of the validations working. If I go here to add recipe, you can see, there we go, it's saying this is blank, can't be this. And then if I recipe ingredients can't be blank, and then the cool thing is if I actually go in here and I add like a recipe ingredient, then it's going to specify and actually say, hey, actually the recipe ingredient quantity can't be blank. It's very specific about it, and it actually highlights that field, and that was somewhat difficult to do because it's deeply nested. So basically validate associated models. But anyway, let's try this. So if we create a recipe, I'm just going to go in and say recipe name, description. I'm just going to keep this really basic just to make a point. So we can add now. We can't go and have nothing, but if we can add ingredients here. Let me fix this for a minute here. So you can see what's pretty cool about this is here, ingredient cheddar. I don't know, one large. When we select an ingredient name, we get this sort of autocomplete, right? So I can start typing something, and this entire list over here is generated from the ingredients index. So anyone who's added an ingredient to the index, or any ingredient that's ever been added in any quantity as a recipe ingredient to anyone's recipe, that is existing recipes in the index or any new recipe, they all get added as ingredients that are available in this autocomplete. But let's find something that, like, I'm assuming no one added sand yet, because that would be ridiculous, but there you go. But if I was looking for something that was already added, we can try, oh, here we go, safflower oil. We can just kind of use that autocomplete. We can see here, if I enter an ingredient that's not there, then it'll generate that, and then we want sand. How much? It should work here. Oh, all right, forgot to do the quantity for that, and that's highlighted. That's nice. So let's say half a cup of sand, as ridiculous as that is. So we're going to add recipe, and there's a generated, basically, way in which this is disregarding, entries for which both fields are blank here. So let's add this so that we can go, and recipe has been created successfully. And there you go, sand cheddar, and you can actually see if you go to the ingredients index that, well, there we go, all the way down here, sand is here, right? Okay. So if we go back to the recipes index and we go to our recipes, right, and there's our recipe, the most recent one that we've done, we can show recipe. I can edit my own recipes. Go to edit recipe, and there we go. And this is really cool. So you have this delete function where I can actually remove some of those. Recipe info updated, it's gone. And again, I add this to my dishes. There you go, there's a recipe, and it's telling me to buy 1 large cheddar. Now, if I delete that, again, from my dishes. Now, I deleted it from my dishes as a dish, but in my recipes index, right, it still exists as a recipe. So that's kind of fun to play with those associations. Trying to think if there's anything else kind of cool about this. Yeah, so adding the substitutions. So if we recommend it, if we open something, let's see. So let's find recipes that, there's this one. I don't believe that I added this one. So yeah, you can see I can't delete or edit it, but I can recommend a substitution. So we might say we select from the ingredients available. And again, this is accepting nested attributes in the sense that this is just a collection select here. So let's say we take, I don't know what I would do here. I guess 1/4 tablespoon of avocado oil, and then I can replace with something. So let's say we want to replace with sunflower oil. See, the autocomplete comes up and I'm able to do that. And how much, and then we're going to designate a quantity, I guess the same quantity, so we can say 1/4 tablespoon. There we go. Alright, and then details of description here, we can just say interesting variation. There we go. Recommend the substitution. Added substitution. And now you can see when I go back to the recipe index and we go in and we, see the most recent, well, actually the ones that we've added substitutions to. So I think it was this one that we just added. And you can see here's our ingredient substitutions: 1/4 tablespoon sunflower oil, and we're replacing that 1/4 tablespoon avocado oil. Description, interesting variation. And I can actually go and I can also add this to my dishes. And there we are in my sort of menu here. And it's telling me, okay, for that, this is the usual recipe, but I might want to check out some of these recommended ingredient substitutions. For the risotto with seafood, here's a recommendation. You can see other recommendations. Hummus, no one has recommended anything yet. Salmon nigiri, someone has. And on the grocery list, here's the regular list as per the author of the recipe, and then any recommended ingredient substitutions. And again, there's usual sort of fail-safes for this. If I try to kind of URL hack over here and say, okay, I'm going to check out user 3, you can only view your own profile dishes grocery list, and we have checks for people editing other recipes that don't belong to them, that is, don't belong to the current logged in user, etc. So it's a really cool project. Gave me a chance to really get a little bit better with Bootstrap, especially working with the Flexbox layout system, working with those nested partials, really deeply nested attributes, especially for that new recipe. This was really tough, but I mean, kind of cool just to kind of have that and have building up this sort of database of ingredients, and for people to be able to think about suggesting different ingredients or editing. And of course, somebody can look at their own recipes over here and select, okay, one of these, like, okay, let's check out the salmon nigiri or whatever, and somebody might have recommended, obviously these are a little ridiculous, but someone might have recommended, hey, fennel seeds instead of that, or whatever, coconut water, I don't know. And you can actually go in and then go to my recipe here and be like, hey, that's a good recommendation. I'll go in over here, I'll grab one of these pre-existing ingredients that I have over here, and maybe I'll replace this guy, right? Remove it, and then I'll add, the ingredient that individual has recommended, whether it be coconut oil, whatever it is. You can actually go ahead and do that. So that was, that's pretty much the gist of it. Again, really cool project, really good experience. Tough though. All right, thank you.